5010 root and a 7018 fill and cap here. I'm running about an 1/8 inch land or so, and then a 332 gap. I got it already prepped up and everything, so we're going to throw these tacks in real quick, and then we'll start welding on it. All right, you guys, so I got my tacks in there. As you can see, I put about 1 inch long tacks, 1/2 inch long tacks or so. And then I like to 3-tack this 4 inch right here, just because it is a little bit smaller and everything, so it's not gonna wanna warp as much on me. So we're gonna go ahead and feather our tacks now. So we got our tack slightly feathered. That way we can ensure we tie into it and everything without blowing all the way through that tack. And now that we got this set up here, I'm going to start running this root. And for this root, I'm going to be running anywhere from about 80 to 90 amps on it. Just kind of depending on my land, my gap, all that kind of stuff. So now that we're ready, let's go ahead and get started on it. Yeah, so we got about a little bit more than 1/4 of that root thrown in right there. Bottom, it was kind of a little cold for me and everything, but as I was going, it kind of picked up some of that heat there to where it was able to burn through pretty nice for me. So it looks like we're at a good heat. I could have probably turned it up a little bit on that bottom, but I'm pretty good right now. And then when I'm running this root, I'm just kind of giving it just little baby whips, kind of going about an 1/8 inch forward and just tapping the leading edge of that puddle. Got a little bit of hole here on my top. I'm going to grind this out just so that I can hit this tie in here. When you're running your root, if that root's ever not following you, go ahead and stop, turn it down a little bit, just so that way it's going to follow you and everything. We're not going to put a hanger in it. And then when you tie in, make sure you always kind of trail out and everything. That way we're not going to get any spot for suck back whenever we do our root. So we got half of it in there. Let's go ahead and do this other half now. So since I'm left-handed, this is obviously my good side right here, and this is going to be what we call our off side. Two different ways to go about doing your off side. You can either get some vice grips or something, and put them down here. That way you can kind of lean up on these and we can lean over the pipe, or you can get up under it. If I got a tack on it on my offside there, I'm just going to get up under it and run it, because I got quite a bit of range of motion up under there, and I can go all the way to that tie-in. So just making sure I'm always blowing through with this root and just giving it just little tiny whips. And it's very important to always kind of keep a proper rod angle in there. So what I like to say is, imagine there's a little dot right there in the center of that pipe. That's where you want your rod pointed all the way throughout for your root. So now for the top side of my offside right here, I'm going to kind of put my vice grips on there. I'm going to lean up over it. And let's get started. So there we go, I got my root in there. I'm going to go ahead and knock off this slag and show y'all. Then after you're running your root, always important to just knock off all that slag, check your root out just to see if you have any missed tie-ins, any undercut, any IP, anything like that. So that way we can go ahead and fix it right off the bat here. I'm going to do my best to try and get a lot of this slag off. So there we go. And as y'all can see, got a nice solid root in there. Not a whole lot of reinforcement, but we're not looking for a whole lot. Remember, we want it to be just right at flush or up to an eighth. Anything lower or past an eighth, or lower than flush or past an eighth, is going to be an automatic fail. So if you see any of that, just go ahead and fix it up. Looks like I'm all good. I got all my tie-ins and everything. So now we're going to grind this root and get it ready for a hot pass. And then whenever I'm grinding, I always like to hit my high spots first. So any restarts, any tie-ins, anything like that, go ahead and hit that first. Get it all kind of knocked off even. And then we're going to hit the whole thing. After I grind it, good idea to wire wheel it. That way if you have any slag in it, we can get it out with this wire wheel here. You don't have to do it. I like to do it just for an extra measure of making sure I get all that slag out of there. So that way I'm not going to get any slag trapped. So this is what I want that root to look like on the outside of it. As you can see, I leave just a little bit of toe lines. We call those wagon tracks. And that's your slag from that 6010. So I like to leave a little bit of those sewn so that way I don't pop through on my root. Other than that, I kind of widen out my bevels just a little bit, just so that way that 7018 on that hot pass wants to lay in there a little bit nicer for me and it doesn't want to get any slag trap on the toes of my weld. But that's what you want to be looking for whenever you're grinding your root. Go ahead and put this back in position here. And then now we're ready for this hot pass. We're going to turn it up a little bit, hence the word hot pass. So we want to turn that up just a little bit. Good rule of thumb is turn it up about 5 to 10 amps, and then you'll be good to go from there. On this, since I got really small bevels, I'm not really going to give it any weaving motion. I'm just going to pretty much just drag it and wash that puddle wet on the edges for me. So running this hot pass, just look behind you at your puddle. Make sure it's wetting into both sides nice and even. Not undercutting, not leaving any slag, and not getting too crazy on reinforcement here. And then if you ever get uncomfortable or anything, go ahead and stop. That way you're not messing up your weld. Halfway point is a really good stopping point. That way you can get a good tie-in right there and you can make it all the way up to the top. Although if you do get uncomfortable in another spot, just go ahead and stop. That way we're not messing anything up. So now we've got one side of this hot pass in. We're going to go ahead and wire wheel this slag off. And then just look at that side of your hot pass, make sure you got everything. Not looking for any slag trap, any lack of fusion, any of that kind of stuff. So looks like I got my hot pass pretty good in there. Little high in some spots, especially like right here on my bottom. That's all right, don't worry about it. We're gonna hit that up with the grinder after we get this whole hot pass in here. One thing I am gonna do is I'm gonna put what we call a little ramp here on our bottom so that way we can get a nice tie-in right there. And then I'll show you guys what I'm talking about as far as this little ramp here. So that's what we're talking about right here. Just so that way I can come in, I can make a nice tie-in without getting any slag inclusion, any of that good stuff. There's my hot pass right there. As you can see, it's a little high in some spots. Remember, we're trying not to hit that whole bevel up. We're trying to leave just a little bit of bevel showing, but if you do get high, that's all right. We got a grinder there for a reason. We'll just knock down those high spots after we get the whole thing in there. I'm gonna put this back in position. And then, like I said earlier, I'm not really giving that rod any motion. I'm just dragging it. And just remember, always be comfortable. If you're ever uncomfortable, just stop, take a second, readjust and everything. It's going to help you out in the long run. Yeah. And now we got this entire hot pass in here. I'm going to wire wheel it again. So, show you guys this hot pass here. This is ideally what we're looking for here, just slightly under flush, leaving a little bit of my bevel showing. That way it's giving me a nice straight line for me to follow when I go do my cap. Not too high anywhere. Looks like I'm hitting all my bevels, getting no slag inclusion or everything. Always make sure that we're striking up inside our bevels, that way we're not getting any arc marks, because that will fail you right there. And this is pretty much what we're looking for right here, you guys. And we'll check out that root once more. Now you can see it really didn't affect that root. If anything, it looks like it kind of pushed it out just a little bit. All right. So if you have any high spots or if you have any slag inclusion or anything like that, now's the time to go ahead and hit it, get it kind of patched up and repaired for you real quick. But since we don't have any, we're all good to go. For the cap on this, you can pretty much keep it about the same heat as you want to as for that hot pass. If you want to, and the machine's running right, we can turn it down just a little bit. That way we're gonna get a nice cap on there. It looks like what I ran that hot pass at was a pretty good heat, so that's what I'm just gonna keep it at for this cap right here. And then, like I said earlier, since these bevels aren't super big or anything, I don't really need to give this rod any motion. And we're going to 2-bead cap it since it is in the 6G position here. So pretty much just do a nice little stringer on that bottom. And then when we go to that top one, we're going to do a nice little stringer as well, okay? So just remember with stick welding, we're never watching that rod. We're always watching our puddle to see if we're getting any porosity or anything like that. So just always kind of keep a lookout for any of that stuff, just so that way we're getting a nice clean weld. And then just check this thing out, make sure we're not getting any undercut on that bottom toe line. We're not worrying about our top toe line so much since we are going to put a 2-bead cap. It will cover all of that stuff up. A lot of times if you are getting undercut, it's telling you you're kind of moving a little bit too fast or you're running a little bit too hot, not allowing that metal to kind of fill back in after you've been digging it out for a little brief second. So if you're seeing any undercut, just go ahead and slow down just a little bit, let it kind of fill itself back in. We're looking good so far. And then tying in, I'm just going to do a nice little J-hook, trace in that crater, and then just go right back to what you're doing. Make sure we're watching that puddle, making it wet out nice and even for us. And then just always maintaining a good rod angle. Alright, and then once again, just after every pass, every rod, go ahead and examine that weld. Make sure it's all good. That way if we do have a spot that's bad, we can go ahead and grind it out, fix it up real quick. Just like how I did on the hot pass here, I'm going to put a little ramp on that bottom, giving me somewhere to tie in real nice. And then remember, when we're grinding stuff, always watch where that wheel's going. Make sure it's not getting out of our weld zone or anything, because the grinder mark will give you a bust. So just make sure you're in complete control of that grinder, not letting it kind of stray off from anywhere. But now we're going to go ahead and hit this offside up. Alright, so we got our bottom cap on there. And for this bottom cap, really all we're watching that puddle just kind of just gently fuse into that bottom bevel, not worrying about our top bevel so much. If it does hit it, it's not the end of the world, don't worry about it. So, and then for our cap reinforcement here, we're looking for roughly about a 1/16 of reinforcement all the way around. I'm just going to check this out real quick, see if I got any misbevel, any porosity, anything like that. Looks like we're good. I'll go ahead and show you what this will look like right here. So, as you can tell, I pretty much got this thing completely capped out all in one. But there is some spots where I got a little bit of undercut, maybe a little bit of misbevel somewhere. So that's what that second bead's for. That'll get it to where it's all nice and good for us. So that's what we're looking for there. Again, nice, even, consistent, about the same height all the way around. And that's what you guys are wanting. We got any questions in the comments?
Yeah. So when you're welding, how close did you get to the puddle?
How close with the rod? So the rod, I just have it just kind of barely off that puddle, allowing it to wet out fully. Remember, that rod never belongs in that puddle. It won't let it kind of wet out properly. It's going to be a really stiff puddle. It's not going to want to move for you. but we don't want to be long arcing it. So if you see that arc kind of dancing, going side to side on you, that's telling you you're kind of getting a little bit too far away from it. We would just be right off of that puddle, allowing it to wet out even.
Do you guys use flux core for pipes, or is stick just the better way to do pipe lining?
So it depends on kind of where you're at. In the field, it's going to be a lot easier to run stick rods and everything compared to like flux core or MIG, whereas in a shop setting, flux core, MIG, TIG is going to be your better options because we don't have to deal with wind in those.
What's some advice do you have for someone starting out on TIG?
Slow down, make every motion nice and fluid, not trying to concentrate too much on it, but also just kind of letting our body flow nice and natural and everything. And just paying attention to your toe lines, paying attention to your puddle, what your rod's doing, what that tungsten's doing and everything.
Someone wants to know how much you would rate that weld.
This weld, I don't know, like $1.50, you know. I just weld, you know, I'm not that good. I just weld.
Why don't you use speed glass?
Speed glass? Never heard of that. If you could tell us what speed glass is, that'd be great, because I want to know what this is.
What's the easiest way to get comfortable with welding?
Practice bracing up in different positions. Try dry running your rods. So like without striking up, put your rod in your stinger, seeing how far we can go and how your body's going to react to it and everything. So like right here, right? Like I got a good range of motion all the way around. I can get down on a knee right here, make it about to halfway and be nice and comfortable. Just try practicing different positions out, seeing what you're going to like more.
Someone's asking if the cameraman has protection.
If the cameraman has what? I don't think so.
Some guys want to see the cap a little bit closer to the screen.
They want to see the cap a little bit closer?
Yeah, or the whatever flow you're in.
See how close we can get this for y'all. There's our bottom tie-in. Does that make them happy?
Do you always use 60-10 for the root?
Yep, 60-10 is, when you're doing stick, it will be most of the time. It's pretty much designed for running roots and everything, whether that's an uphill root or downhill root, doesn't really matter which one. We do both of them here and everything, but 60-10 is primarily used for a bead rod.
Speed glass beats auto darkening.
Oh, do we use those? Yeah, all the time. So I run an auto dark now. I used to run fixed shade out in the field and for a very long time until I had a buddy kind of put me on the new Lincoln 24Cs, which I'm liking a lot right now compared to that fixed shade and everything, just for the environment I'm in.
What type of welding clip do you have?
I just have a regular sugar scoop. I chop this myself and put the leather on it and everything. So nothing too crazy here. You can get these at like Outlaw, Pipeliner's Cloud. Ton of different companies make these nowadays and everything, or you can make it your own. It's not super hard to do. Kind of took me about 2 or 3 of them to get the hang of it and everything, but now I'd like to say I do pretty good on them.
Some people are wondering if you should, or if it's worth it to use the arm protection for burns.
You can if you want to, or you can just learn how to stay out of the fire and be a man, you know? That's the way I do it. As you can see, I don't have any sleeve on or anything. I just know how to stay out of the fire and yeah, be a man about it.
Did you drag or weave the hot pass cap?
I just drug both of those. If I was on some thicker pipe, some bigger pipe or something like that, I probably would have put a weave on it, just so that way I can get a little bit more out of that rod.
What's the best welding story that you have that you can relate?
Best welding story? Ooh. I don't know. One time I got a gap that was, I don't know, about 3/4 of an inch wide, doing some combo and everything. And yeah, I had to sew that up, and that was my production shot. So for those of you that don't know, after you take your test and everything, your first couple welds or so are going to be shot as well. So you have to 100% on those. If not, you're going to get ran off the job. And yeah, it was like my first weld on the job. It was like a 3/4 inch gap, and it was a nightmare, but we got it sewn up.
What is the best way to keep 7018 from sticky?
keep 7018 from sticking. Whenever you're striking up, treat it like a match. We're not going to just poke at it or nothing. We're going to do a nice solid swipe to it. Don't have that rod in your puddle. You know, if you keep that rod in your puddle, nowhere for that heat to go or nothing like that, so it's just going to want to stick on you. So remember to let it breathe just a little bit. That way we can let that rod wet out, or let the puddle wet out, and then that rod won't stick on us.
Do you like TIG, stick, or make more?
I like TIG personally more. That's what I did out in the field as my profession and everything, and it's just kind of what I fell in love with. That's it. All right, so now that we got this first cap on there and everything, we pretty much took up the entire bevels with that first cap. I'm going to put a guideline in, so I'm pretty much just going to get my 1/8 inch wheel and I'm going to score it all the way around, giving me something nice and straight to follow, and then as well as getting something for that weld to sit into. So, as you can see, I just pretty much scored it right at that top toe line of that first pass right there. Didn't score it too deep, just something where it allows that puddle to wet into without undercutting on that pipe. And then when you're running stick or anything, it's a good idea to stagger your starts and stops and everything. So whether you want to do them kind of like about a 1/2 inch, 1/4 inch apart and everything, just so that way we're not getting a big cluster of porosity for when they x-ray us. So what I like to do is I'll run pretty much good side and then off side, and then for my next one I'll go off side, then good side, and then so on, just repeating that. If I have, like if I'm doing like a monster stick out or anything like that, just so that way all my tie-ins are away from each other. And then actually, I'm going to turn it down just a little bit since this pipe is nice and warm now. We kind of have continuously welded on it and everything. So for that top pass, it's a good idea to just kind of give it a little bit of a bump down, just so that way that puddle isn't so violent for us. So this top cap here, I'm just paying attention into if I'm getting undercut, watching my overlap, all that kind of good stuff. I'm just making sure that puddle's wetting out really nice for me. So got a little bit uncomfortable there. That's all right. Like I said, we'll just stop, get a new rod, start up again. And I don't know if you guys could tell, but as I'm welding, I'm moving these vice grips around on my offside and everything, just so that way I can find a new spot to brace up on. I'm a little bit more comfortable. So whereas if I had them down here where they originally were, I'm going to be kind of reaching whenever I get to that top and everything, giving me some more shake, doing all that kind of. So remember, just always wire wheeling every pass. That way, if we have a spot that we need to fix, we can go ahead and address it immediately rather than getting the whole thing done and then having to fix it. So that's what we're looking. That's what we got right there. So looking for that 50 to 30% overlap, making sure we're getting no undercut, wetting out nice. And yeah, so then I'm going to put that ramp on my offside or on the bottom here, just so that we can get a nice tie-in. So remember, just watch out with that grinder. That way we're not getting any grinding marks outside our bevels. Any other questions so far?
How many times have you been lit on fire?
At the beginning of my career, too many times to count. Now, I would say it is very, very rare and everything. But while I was learning and starting out, it was a lot.
How do you know if you're running the right amps?
Based on the way that puddle's wetting out, you're looking for like some C's and those ripples and everything. If you're seeing that, telling you got a good amps, good travel speed, good rod angle, all that kind of stuff. If you're getting like B's and everything, a lot of times it means that you're either running too hot, too fast. Could be long arcing it a little bit if you're doing that, if you're getting that as well. But it's just looking for a nice circular puddle that's just wetting out on its own.
Do you have any recommendations on the first machine?
On a first machine, depends if you're doing like more fence lining work, anything like that where you're gonna be doing outside. A Miller Trailblazer, Miller Bobcat, the Lincoln XMPs or whatever they are now, Lincoln Rangers, those are all good machines. If you want to get a little bit bougie with it, you can get a nice Miller Pipe Pro with it. You can be on the cheaper side and go like with SA200. If you're in like a shop environment, there's tons of them we can get. Like pretty much any Miller's good, any Lincoln's pretty good, ESOBs are really good, and then you got some like kind of Chinese ones that I would kind of stray away from.
What process should I try first?
Starting out, I would definitely say stick. It's pretty much, that's what everyone starts out on. It's just how we do it here. So stick is a good option. If you want to, you can do it with, you can do TIG to start. You can see your puddle a little bit more clear, but you have multiple things that you're having to do with your body all at once, where a stick is just, you're holding the stinger in your hand and you're running uphill with it.
What is the hardest process to learn?
The hardest process to learn, it kind of depends on who you are. Some people, they struggle with stick a lot. Some people, they struggle with TIG a lot. MIG, you're not going to see that so much or anything, but it just kind of depends on the person that you are. It might be stick or it might be TIG.
Are there any fees for out of state?
No, there's no fees for out of state.
What is the best shade for indoor welders using perfect shade?
A 10, a 9 are pretty good. If you're doing flux core, I'd say go a little bit darker of a shade, go to like 11 or 12. But if you're doing TIG or stick or anything like that indoors, a 9 or a 10 is perfect.
What's your favorite welding brand?
My favorite welding brand has to be Miller. They're tried and true. They've been around for pretty much the longest, besides for Lincoln. But I think they make the best machines and they run the nicest.
What do you honestly think of MIG?
It's got its place. It's really easy. It's really fast. You can crank out a lot of welds for it and everything. In my opinion, it's for lazy people though.
Is housing included?
Yes, housing is included.
Pancake or sugar scoop?
Sugar scoop is the move.
And then what shade number do you use?
I use an 8 or a 9, kind of depending on the day and how my eyes are feeling. If I'm doing TIG, I'm going to kind of drop my shade down just a little bit. If I'm doing stick, I'm going to kind of bump it up just a little bit. Just kind of depends on the day. All right, so we got the last side of our cap to do here, and then we're going to be done with it. So here we go, you guys. So remember, when we're doing this cap here, we're just watching that overlap, watching for undercut, just making sure that puddle's letting out nice and good for us. Go ahead and look at this right here. We got our bottom tie-in. We don't have any porosity, no undercut. We're looking good. Alright, and remember, just get all that smoke off there, get all your BBs off there, make it look presentable before you go to show it to anyone, especially like an inspector. They're just gonna appreciate it a whole lot more. But here we go, we got this cap and this 4-inch all the way filled out here and capped out. That's what we're looking for. So as you guys can see, I got some nice overlap. My beads are pretty nice and straight. Got my tie-ins good on the bottom here. No porosity, no undercut, anything of that such. And yeah, so there we go. That's how you guys would weld out a 4-inch right there. Yeah, what do we got for questions? Alrighty.
How should I start getting into welding?
You can either apply to a welding school, like here at Welding Academy. You can go to your local college. You can buy a machine and just practice on your own for a little bit. Make sure that you actually like it and everything before you do go spend the money on like a school or anything. That is what I suggest right off the bat. Although if you do have the money and you just want to learn right off the bat and get really good with it, going to a school is going to help you out a lot more.
What makes your school different from the others?
We have world-class instructors. All of us have gotten tons of years of experience out in the field. We all know how to do pretty much every procedure, and we're just a great school.
Do you guys teach one-on-one?
Yes, we do a lot of one-on-ones. If we find a student that's struggling pretty good with one certain process or one certain position or anything, we're going to take the time, go give them a full demo on it, watch them do one all the way out, and we're just going to make sure they got it before we leave.
How often are you in the shop with the students?
Every day, unless the students are in the classroom learning pipe fitting.
How often should I sharpen my tungsten when TIG welding?
Always keep a sharp tungsten. Never let it dull up. If you do stick it, it's a good idea to just stop, go ahead and resharpen it, and then proceed.
Any advice on bend tests?
Bend test, keep everything clean. Just make sure that we're getting no slag trap, no lack of fusion, make sure everything's wet and properly, burn nice and hot on them. And a lot of people worry about bend test. I think they're pretty easy, to be honest.
Can you bring your own brake there?
Yes, you can.
Do you pay for your own tooling?
No,
Included.
it's included.
Do you have to use metal buckets?
Yes, we have to use metal buckets. Sometimes you'll see some plastic buckets and everything. Although those ones melt to where metal buckets aren't going to melt. They might arc up or something, but it's never really going to affect a bucket.
Do you ever use the rod fully?
Yes, I use the rod pretty much all the way down to the numbers. That's as most as I can. Sometimes you just won't have that. You're going to be doing smaller pipe, and you're just going to have to only use about half of that rod or so.
Why do some people bend the rod?
Some people bend it so that way they're going to get a good rod angle all the way through. I'll do it with mine quite often and everything. I don't bend mine crazy or anything. I just give it just a slight bend so that way you can get a good rod angle all the way to that top. You'll see some people, they'll kind of bend it all kinds of crazy ways and everything. I think that's just doing too much, and it's not really going to help you out that much.
Someone's asking if they can see the root again.
Yeah. So there's our root right there. And they see it good. So as you guys can see, I got, I don't know, about a 1/16 above flush, give or take. No missed tie-ins, everything, no undercut, none of that good stuff. That's what we're looking for.
Will you show me that?
Yeah.
And then will you show the cap one more time too?
Do what?
The cap.
Oh, yeah. So,
Stand back a bit. Yeah.
right about here.
Yeah.
So nice straight cap, no porosity, no grinder marks, no arc marks. Trying to keep it as nice and straight as possible.
Some people are saying that's a perfect root.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
What do you do when you have porosity?
You're going to grind that porosity all the way out. If you have porosity and you don't grind it out and you just kind of leave it there, it's just going to keep showing up on the surface. So when you get porosity, grind it all the way out until you can't see it anymore, and then you're going to just rerun that pass.
How can you avoid undercut?
Undercut is just travel speed and your heat. So if you're getting really, really gnarly undercut, like really deep, really long and all that stuff, a lot of times you're running too fast and too hot, not allowing that metal to fill back in on itself. If you do see it, a lot of times I just like to say just slow down just a little bit, see if it'll cover itself back up. If it's not doing that, just turn your heat down just a little bit and slow down just a little bit.
Why should you go into welding for a career?
Welding is a high-paying trade. We are one of the best trades in the entire trades and all that. It's gangster, you know, like everyone wants to be a welder, so why not be a welder?
How do you choose the right welding rod or filler metal?
That's just going to determine on your pipe. So anything carbon, you're going to run a 6010, 7018 is going to be your primary 2 rods that you're going to run. Stainless, you're going to run like a 304, 308, 309, 316, any of that kind of stuff. If you got chrome, you're going to run a 8018, 9018, anything like that. Or you got like a B3 or B, you got a 2 1/4 chrome, you got B3 chrome, B6, and B9. There's tons of them out there and everything. If you're just welding carbon though, 6010 and 7018 is your best bet.
Is there any tips if your hands go too fast while you're welding?
If my hands go too fast, tell them to slow down. You know, mind over body.
Can you explain your hood? What attachments do you have?
So mine's just a regular sugar scoop that I chopped and everything, and I just put the leather on and riveted it. I got a G-strap from G-strap Designs that I just cut my old headgear, and then that just slips right on. Makes it super, super comfortable to where you don't have that thing or the ratchet kind of pinch in the back of your head. You don't have to ever worry about that ratchet going out on you. I chopped my bottom so that way it doesn't hit my throat or anything. But overall, it's just a pretty generic hood, I'd say.
Do you guys have ventilation?
Yes, we got state-of-the-art ventilation here.
How many certificates can you get here?
So you'll get your structural stick, and then you'll get your double extra stick. After that, you'll get a combo double X, and then a Sketty carbon TIG out, Sketty stainless TIG out, downhill or chrome, and then Inconel as well. So you're about 8 to 10 tests in total that we can provide you guys with.
What tools and equipment should I invest in when starting?
Invest in a quality stinger, whether that's going to be a Tweco, a T300, or a Stinger V. Invest in a quality grinder, whether that's going to, I'd like DeWalt grinders. I think they hold up the best and everything. You can get a 4-inch, a 6-inch. Those are your 2 big ones right there that I would invest in, and I'd get 2 of them if I was you. A nice pair of snips, a nice pair of vice grips. Get a nice welding hood with a nice lens. That is very, very important. And yeah, that's about it.
Are you worried about any health, like developing any health issues?
No, since we got nice ventilation here, you're not breathing any of that smoke in. Plus, I don't know, like, I think it's all a myth, you know.
Best beginner tip for stick welding?
Slow down, watch your puddle, make sure you're breathing, and just always be comfortable.
Do you have to bring your own hood?
No, we provide you guys with hoods and a really nice auto darkening lens. You guys can bring your own hoods and your own lenses if you want to, but we do supply you guys with them.
Do you do high purity welding?
High purity welding? No, we do not do any of that here. I mean, I bet I could show you guys how to do it. Shouldn't be too hard, you know, welding is just welding. But no, we do not do any of that here.
Any advice for girls looking into getting into welding?
Don't let the guys scare you. Don't let them freaking smart off at you and argue with you or anything. Stand up for yourself. At the end of the day, we're all just here to make money. Alrighty. That's it for today. You guys have a good one.